Are you or someone you love battling chronic illness and searching for breakthrough solutions? In today's episode, we delve into an unconventional yet increasingly acknowledged approach to healing with psychedelics. Discover how these powerful substances are being reevaluated by scientists and health practitioners alike as potential keys to unlocking profound healing. We'll explore the science, the stories, and the transformative potential of psychedelics in treating chronic conditions. If you're curious about alternative therapies that go beyond conventional medicine, this episode will open your eyes to the possibilities of profound wellness and recovery. Join us as we journey into the cutting edge of health science.
Welcome to My True Health podcast. I'm Michelle Scarlett, a board certified functional medicine practitioner, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, certified personal trainer, and women's health coach. I'm here to help women achieve true health by deep diving into the symptoms that often go ignored or dismissed. Join me and other experts in the women's health space as we uncover the truth around all things women's health. Hello, friends. Before we dive into today's episode, this is your friendly reminder to rate and review my podcast so more women like you get access to it. We know how important it is to empower and educate women to be advocates for their own health because the information we share on this podcast is not the information we're taught by our doctors.
Brianne is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified herbalist who specializes in bioenergetic medicine, epigenetics, and science based nutrient therapy for chronic illness. Brianne has been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, SIBO, bipolar disorder, ADD, Lyme disease, and mold illness, all of which she has put into remission with holistic lifestyle choices and remedies. Her mission is to empower people to become their own health advocate and healer. Wow, wow, wow. Brianne, thank you so much for joining me today. Your bio is incredible. And I'm so excited to talk to you about how you have overcome such diagnosis.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk all about this.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me and my listeners a little bit about yourself. Tell us your story. How are you sitting right where you're sitting right now today?
Yeah. Well, I had to become a health warrior, is really like the story. I was not going to take the doctor's diagnosis of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and Lyme disease and bipolar and the list goes on and on. I was just like, I'm not going to just wait for depression to come every other month or every 6 weeks like clockwork. I was tired of being at the whims of my body. And I was around 23. So I was first diagnosed with when I was still in college. I was at UCLA. And I was diagnosed then with the chronic fatigue and the SIBO. SIBO was like not even really a thing, but I was in Los Angeles and Dr. Mark is like the authority on SIBO in the world. So I went to him at the time. He wasn't an authority yet. Went to him, was diagnosed with SIBO, and that was just, and he gave me antibiotics. And now he kind of has other regimens for what to do. But that it was the last time I took antibiotics. I was like, I'm never doing this again because I got better. This is what most people, I get better for a couple of weeks. And then my symptoms came back with a vengeance.
Oh, I bet.
And that's when I was like, there's got to be something different. Like, can't be the way. I've taken 30 rounds of antibiotics since I was 9 months old. This is not the way.
Since you were 9 months old?
Yeah, ear infections. So many children get put on antibiotics at around 9 months for ear infections. And unfortunately, I did. And I was just in that hamster wheel of doctor, antibiotic, doctor, antibiotic. So it set me up for total disruption in my microbiome. By the time I was 21 or 22, I was not having a regular cycle anymore. I was so tired that I would have to pull over and lay down in the back of my car. The fatigue was, crippling. And that was terrible for a 22-year-old girl,
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So I decided to take matters into my own hands. And at that time, there's no Instagram, there's no Facebook. This is 2022, 2023. So I'm sorry, 2002, 2003. And I just had to read books. I read The Yeast Connection and started understanding Candida. And that was really where I began my understanding, like what had happened to me with the antibiotics and what had really caused the disruption in my gut-brain connection.
Wow. So I had been diagnosed with SIBO a few years ago, and that was kind of my catapult into this as well, like how brutal that is.
Mm.
I also was prescribed antibiotics. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say I was prescribed antibiotics. I was at the same time, I had been diagnosed with shingles.
Mm.
And my doctor put me on antivirals and antibiotics for shingles. And then my naturopath, who I was working with, who diagnosed the SIBO, was like, oh, well, we'll just use the antibiotics to our advantage that you're taking for the other thing. And nobody in my world connected that,
Mm.
like, obviously I have massive chronic stress issues and that we need to look at that before we just throw medication into my body.
Yeah, but that's the hardest thing for people to address is their chronic stress, because there's for that. If there is a pill, it's a benzodiazepine, and that is like highly addictive. So it's like you got to change your lifestyle, and most people, that's very difficult.
It is. It's probably the most difficult part for sure. As a natural practitioner, as you as well, I'm sure, my clients are always looking for the supplement. And
Mm-hmm.
my response is always, if you can't get your sleep together, if you can't get outside every single day, if you can't start moving your body, like these are not going to work and it will be a complete waste of time and money. So let's get those foundations.
Yes, it's key. It is all about your lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you were first diagnosed with SIBO and chronic fatigue syndrome. Where did the next bits play out?
So then I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder and ADHD, ADD.
What's bipolar 2?
So there's 1 and 2. So 1 is more, you have more episodes of mania. It's more, there's also more maybe hallucinatory. It's a little bit more severe.
Okay.
With episodes, where bipolar 2 is more, there's more episodes of depression and maybe smaller episodes of mania. Mania typically can be driven by a substance. So like maybe marijuana can induce mania. Certain things can induce small episodes of mania. So I was diagnosed with bipolar 2, and now knowing what I know, I was just problems in my methylation cycle. And I really think that bipolar, there's a lot, and this is my opinion, but I think a lot of these issues stem from the problems in our genetic pathways.
Yeah.
Like methylation. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. And when this is now months ago when I first met you and you had told me that you had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, even myself being a natural practitioner, you hear that and you automatically feel like you have to be treated by a doctor.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like your first thought is like, oh, it's definitely out of my scope. I am not a mental health professional. But then when you speak to you, it's very clear that you can't silo your brain from the rest of your body. If there are things,
Thank you.
yeah, if there are things going on in your body, in your gut, wherever, in your liver, your ability to detoxify, it's going to affect your brain.
Absolutely. It is so crucial to understand that these are not disconnected. They are intimately connected, and the status and the health of your microbiome completely, is involved in brain function. So we cannot separate them any longer. And one of my favorite people to listen to is Dr. Zach Bush, because he's always talking about that connection and the connection to the soil and minerals. So I always am reminded by him that this is something that needs to be talked about more. And we need to also inform people about the limbic system and how that, and this is what we'll get into in psychedelics, how the limbic system plays such a key role in how we respond to our outer world and how that connects to chronic pain, chronic disease, chronic symptoms, illness.
Yeah, wow. Okay, I do want to dive into that, obviously, but I want you to continue telling us your story. Okay, so
Okay.
you've been diagnosed with bipolar 2. What
Mhm.
was your response to that?
Well, at the time, I had like one of the best doctors who was more open. He wasn't like, he definitely was a psychiatrist. He put me on pharmaceuticals, but he was more open minded. So I really appreciated him for the support that he gave me. I was put on lithium. I had, I'd taken risperidol at times, which is an antipsychotic. I have taken, benzos when I needed, like Xanax. I was on Lamictal, I was on Lamictal for like 6 years or something, which is like what they give for people with bipolar 2, like me. So I had a toolbox and a cocktail that I would use, and kind of sometimes I took Wellbutrin, which is another drug, and actually really appreciate that drug. It helped me a lot at certain times in my life. So I just had a toolbox of drugs. And of course, people talked about meditation and people talked about yoga, and I did those things religiously. I got my yoga certification. I did everything, CBT. I saw therapist. I did EMDR later in my, which we can talk about, which I absolutely love. So I did everything that I could, but there was never a discussion about what could be wrong with, and genetics were not a big deal like they are today. So we didn't have as much information back then. So I'll say that that's why. But we weren't talking about methylation and how much methylation affects mood. We weren't talking about certain nutrient deficiencies and how that can affect mood. We were certainly, unfortunately, not talking enough about trauma and how that affects mood. So there were lots of things that could have been brought up. There is one book, though, that was at that time, which did help me. It's called The Mood Cure, by Julia Ross. And it's still something I reference today, because using amino acids, which I'm a huge fan of, and I do all the time. Her book talks about using amino acid therapy to support brain function. So that was like my foray into starting to learn about how we can do this holistically.
That's incredible. All of the things that you listed outside of your drug toolbox,
Yeah.
were a lot to do with you mentally,
Yeah.
right? So it wasn't even in the realm of talking to you about what was going on inside of your internal body. So like doing yoga is you physical, but a lot of yoga and restorative yoga is about sort of the meditation aspect and
Right.
calming the body and calming the brain. The meditation's similar, get to a clear space in your head. Obviously cognitive behavioral therapy is exactly that. It is your behavior, it is your choices, but it's going on from what's happening inside of your head, right?
Mhm.
All great tools, except when you think about if you have an actual physical thing going on. So if you're struggling with methylation and your toxic load is really high, your brain is likely inflamed. All of your tissues are likely inflamed, but your brain specifically. So great that you can do all of those things that probably did help you immensely, but wasn't getting like to the root of it.
Exactly. So people want to categorize everything as like, it's either it's all trauma, or it's all your stress, or it's everything. It's all of them playing a role. And we have to look at every little aspect and just make sure that we have addressed it.
Yeah.
And so another thing that you just reminded me of is heavy metal toxicity. I mean, if you look at the symptoms of mercury toxicity and heavy metal toxicity. And then you look at bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, it is like so similar, or ADHD. So
Breast
with
implant
that,
illness.
exactly, that's
Just,
toxicity,
yes.
toxicity.
I just
So
did a talk yesterday about breast implant illness. And like, although I can label what I went through like as breast implant illness, really what it came down to was toxic load.
yes, completely, completely. And then your body is inflamed because of it.
Yeah.
So that is such a big one that, we need to remind people. And now the amount of toxic chemicals in our environment is beyond what we've ever been up against before. So there's that, not to mention our emotional and physical stress from possibly chronic infections that we have. So there's another thing you got to look at. You got to look, how is my microbiome? Did I take a ton of antibiotics like I did? And now I don't have the gut bugs to produce the B vitamins that are so crucial. Or do I have some overgrowth of some kind of like C. diff, and it's stealing nutrients or creating a toxin? So it's like, if we are not looking at every single aspect and doing our detective work, we're still going to miss the boat, unfortunately. So you got to work with a practitioner that knows all of these areas and can say, okay, we've checked that off. We've checked that off. Okay. And then you're going to get better. Like, there's no doubt.
Yeah. You can't like I just said, you can't silo just like one thing, like, oh, I am exposed to mold, so I'm only going to focus on that, because there's like a whole list of things that can be going on in your body, not just because of mold, but like in addition to.
Exactly.
And, it's, people are like struggling with these chronic issues. And then if they go to a conventional doctor, they are then throwing pharmaceuticals on top of that, which are then further interrupting the toxic load.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Further interrupting the body's systems.
Yeah.
Something that just frustrates me to no end is people using PPIs, proton pump inhibitors like Nexium and things. And that to me is like, this needs to stop immediately. Unless it's an acute situation for like mast cell activation, or you've got some acute situation, but you should never, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor, but never take a proton pump inhibitor, because that will lead to SIBO. That will lead to, malabsorption syndromes. That's going to lead to problems absorbing minerals, and then you're going to have brain function problems. So it's like, that right there is like, please stop Western medicine. Stop doing that.
Stop handing it out like candy.
Yeah. Like, it's just frustrating to no end, especially when you have been on the receiving end and been sick, and it just made you worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. One thing I just want to say about inflammation and our world is so much more toxic than it's ever been, which, for my listeners, if this gives you an aha moment, here it is. The amount of toxicity, heavy metals, forever chemicals in cord blood. Okay. Umbilical cord blood. We are talking the very beginning of life is it is in 100% of women or babies' cord blood. So your baby is being born today in this world already exposed. Exactly. So no wonder things like ADHD in children is increased. PANS disease or PANDAS is massively increased. Obesity in children, massively increased. And it is the part of the reason why they say the next generation will be the first generation to not outlive their parents. This is an epidemic. This is an epidemic.
It is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's something that I'm glad we're talking about, because people do not take this seriously. We need to have this piece in our lifestyle. This has to be part of your lifestyle. You cannot just think, okay, I'll wait till I get older and, start having health issues, or I'll do it some other day. It has to happen now. Detoxification, daily detoxification, therapeutics, herbs, therapies have to be implemented now.
Yep. Agreed.
especially if you want to get pregnant. Like it should be mandatory for all women to do some type of 3-month detox before getting pregnant to avoid the problems that we're seeing now, like ADHD and autism. Autism now, it's 1 in 22 in California, 1 in 22 children. I have something on my website where it's like, some 31,000% increase since 1970. So we need to be taking extreme measures right now.
I agree with you. And the reason I brought up the idea of children is because I want people to realize, not just for their children, but if you are 35, 40, 50, you have now lived 50 years or however many years adding to that toxic load. It didn't like just start 5 years ago. Like it has been since you were born.
Exactly. And they say that, these cancer and autoimmune conditions like MS, they are building over time. This is not something that just happens. You have been building it since you were born, since you were 15. So you got to think about it. Like we all have to do something. If you don't want to spend the last 20 years of your life feeling like just sitting at home and watching TV all day, and being at the whims of the pharmaceutical companies, then you got to do something now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you're saying that. Okay. I just had to touch on all those points. I knew we wouldn't have trouble filling up this hour.
I know.
Okay. So you have been diagnosed with bipolar, and like, I know your bio talks about Lyme disease and ADD and mold. So how did you come upon that stuff?
So I didn't get diagnosed with Lyme until I was 38. And I think Lyme had been somewhere in my life. Or, Dave Asprey he thinks, mold triggers the same markers that Lyme, like when you get tested for Lyme. So I don't know what came first. I did live in a moldy home. I grew up, it was in my parents' bedroom and like on this side of the house. It wasn't where I was necessarily. Well, we never really tested my old room, but anyway, so I did grow up in a moldy home. I never got a tick bite. So I did have, what was interesting is that something else people need to keep in mind is if they have a really bad episode of food poisoning, that can be such a huge trigger into starting to have all these problems. So I had a really bad bout of food poisoning, which I think was an like an aflatoxin. They call it ciguatera, which is in fish. So that was what was my cascade. And then I started learning about Lyme, and thank God I did. And thank God I got a diagnosis, because it opened me up to the world of low-grade chronic infections, and how you have the biofilms that they live in, and how you have to go, break open the biofilm to attack the bugs, and how they do not live in the bloodstream. They live in tissue. And like, I learned so much about how these microbes live and how they create toxins, which then junks up your bile. And then so much of the symptoms that people experience come from dirty bile and having poor bile flow.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was
whole program.
Huge.
Yeah. Huge realization. My whole program, the first 60 days is just opening up drainage pathways, because 100%, 100% of the women that I work with, their liver and gallbladder are struggling.
Mm-hmm. I mean, gallbladder, this is an indicator. Gallbladder surgery is the #1 elective surgery in the United States. This is because what's happening is the body recycles fat. It's an adaptive, wonderful mechanism that the body has created, because at times we weren't getting enough fat as a species. So it would recycle these healthy fats. But now we're recycling fat soluble toxins, and it's sticking around, and it's getting, lodged in the gallbladder along with cholesterol and the other natural things that should be there. So our poor gallbladder is so toxic. And it's really the bile channels as well, like the biliary channels are getting super junked up.
Yeah. That makes me so sad.
I
Our
know.
our environment is so toxic. It's just making us so toxic.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so where did you turn holistic? Like not you professionally, but like where did you eventually turn? And I just got to ask, and if it's too much to share, I understand. Are you on any pharmaceutical drugs today?
Well, I'll start with, I started being holistic when I was 22. So I did
Okay.
start doing the diets, the candida diets, taking the supplements, taking the herbs. I worked for New Chapter, which is a very popular nutritional supplement company. I worked for them for 8.5 years. So I took all of their stuff, and I worked for Life Extension, and I took all of their stuff. So I have been holistic in my treatment of myself and my view on life since I was 22.
Okay.
But I didn't become a professional until I was around 39. I'm 45. So, but with the bipolar, I did not stop taking medication until I was 38. So I stopped, I was a little bit sooner. No, 37, 38, I stopped taking medication. I'm not on any pharmaceuticals. However, once in a while, I will take a beta blocker if my heart rate becomes dysregulated. If I have a flare or something and my heart rate gets dysregulated, I will take a beta blocker every like once in a while just to self-regulate, help myself self-regulate.
Yeah, that's incredible. Did you when it came to weaning off of the pharmaceuticals for the bipolar disorder, were you afraid? Did you feel like you weren't ready? Did you like, what was it that if you felt really good in your body, maybe you didn't, I don't know, I don't want to tell your story for you, but like, was it fear that kept you on for so long? Was it just,
Yeah,
tell
it was
me.
a couple. It was a couple things. It was a terrible ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, we got those. We all got those.
But it was also, I wanted to try psychedelic therapy. I wanted to do ayahuasca, and I had to get off of pharmaceuticals in order to do that. And that was my big motivator. And one of the ways that I did that also was doing amino acid therapy. So I kind of like transitioned, which I'm actually, that's part of what I'm pretty good at my practice, and helped other people, is once they get the okay from their doctor that they're going to wean off, I help them holistically wean off of drugs. So I actually have a really great background in doing that for myself and clients. And that really helped me feel confident that I can do this. So, and set me up to be able to try ayahuasca so that I can see how that would affect me.
How was that experience?
Oh my gosh. Ayahuasca, it was life-changing. And but I have to say that, I had done other psychedelics, like I had done psilocybin, and recreationally I had done lots of psilocybin and ketamine and LSD and tried things. But the difference is the intention, is the work that you do before the ceremony, the work that you do after the ceremony, the intention that you have going in. You actually should be doing some self-inventory and working with somebody who can help you during this whole thing, not just, okay, I'm going to go for a weekend and we're just going to be on vacation. I'm going to take some psilocybin and I'm going to, work through some things. That's okay, but that's not going to make the big difference in your life. You have to have someone maybe guide you, like a trip sitter, or you do a ceremony like I did. Excuse me.
With a shaman?
Yeah, so I've done ayahuasca 3 times with the shaman, with a group setting. And so I'll say this is that I didn't know at the time what was happening with why my brain changed so drastically. I didn't know about the limbic system. I didn't know about brain retraining. I didn't know what I know now. But at the time, it was like the lights turned on and I wasn't in that loop that I had been in for the last 15, 20 years. It was like I felt freedom. I felt like there was a sense of I'm this almost new person. I was more extroverted. I was so happy. and it lasted. It wasn't like it was only there for a couple days. For me, it lasted, and it has lasted. And this is like a whole other subject of why it might come back for somebody. It's not like, oh, this is a cure all. Like, it might come back for someone, but there are tools that you can learn and things that you can do to support yourself if it does. But in my case, there's only a couple things that I've had to do to keep me healthy. And like maybe microdosing for somebody might be that, or doing a retreat. And, there's ways, but I have to say it was life changing. And one of the biggest solutions that I have ever found. And I would say it was crucial to who I am now and how healthy and happy I am.
Wow. Wow. When you honestly, the first time you said the word intention, the difference is intention, I felt my eyes well up
Oh,
because that's real. We talked about this before I hit record. You can recreationally do these things, these drugs, these psychedelics, whatever. And you can like go off into the woods and like kind of facilitate it yourself, but like without like truly going with the intention of like freeing yourself from this trauma, from this label, from this thing, from whatever, like you're not going to get like that therapeutic benefit.
yeah, absolutely. It's critical to that. What they always say is set and setting, your mindset and the setting that you have created. And I think it's so important to have somebody there with you to reflect back what you're experiencing. So with psilocybin and being able to use psilocybin much more easily with therapeutically in the United States now, there are ways that you can talk, have somebody sit with you while you do it. And it's called a trip sitter. My colleague and good friend Sarah Howitt created a trip sitting course for other coaches or practitioners who want to support people in psychedelic therapy, where that trip sitter is there to set the space, to make sure you're safe. They're not going to be like interacting with you. They're just going to make sure that if you want interaction, they'll be there. But if you don't want interaction, they're there as well, right? They're there to give you that support, both during the ceremony, before the ceremony, after the ceremony. And I think that this therapy is the next evolution of healing in our world. It's been so critical for me and so many people that I talk to. And the research is there as well. We can get into that.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask, so we just talked about sort of like trip sitting. So correct me if I'm wrong, taking a larger dose of psilocybin, for instance, and actually having a trip.
Correct.
Like actually feeling the effects, potential hallucinations, physical feelings, whatever that it manifests for somebody. But what about microdosing? You touched on it for a second, and I want to get into that. Talk to us about the importance of microdosing to help overcome chronic illness.
Yeah. So I think we have to talk a little bit about why chronic illness and psychedelics, why they would even go together. And the reason is that I'll say this, the perception of danger is happening in the limbic system. So the amygdala, the hippocampus, the thalamus, that is where our body is remembering danger. It's remembering, hey, that was not good. And maybe this was all subconscious.
Yes.
So, for example, I'll say maybe you ate something that, and you had a fight with your partner. Your body, unfortunately, will remember all of those stress chemicals coming out when you ate that chicken. So the next time you eat chicken, you might be sensitive because the body's like, oh, there was danger at that time you had chicken. There were all these stress chemicals in the body. So it is going to connect the chicken with the stress chemicals. And then that will go back to the limbic system and be like, hey, 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 the chicken is here. Maybe we should be fearful of this chicken.
Right.
So, and it's way more in depth than that, but I just want to give people an understanding of how trauma and fear and stress all play a role in how our body is constantly reacting to our environment and to the things that we're maybe smelling or eating. So with chronic illness, that is a huge part, is like this limbic system looping where, with our body's going to give a pain signal when we smell mold, because in the past, we've had so much inflammation come up when we've been exposed to mold. So the body's going to say, danger, danger, you need, it's going to give you the danger signals.
Mm-hmm.
So our body stays in this loop with anything that has been dangerous or fearful. And in order to get out of that, you need to either do some brain retraining, which there are lots of options for that now, and reset the nervous system, the vagus nerve, and help the brain to not be responding in that way. Or we can use psychedelics. And psychedelics, for me, was like the quick way. It's 4 hours. Ayahuasca is a little longer, but like with something like psilocybin, you're in the trip for 4 hours, and it literally is, that neuroplasticity is happening. It is it's like almost like a Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if people still know, but it's like, you have all of the sketch that you did, and it's like the psilocybin comes in and shakes it up so that those neural pathways can be written in a different way.
Eat some chicken while high on mushrooms.
Right. Like whatever there's a great therapy that I love called NAET. And that is another way, is one way that you're retraining the brain and helping it not be as sensitive to things that you've been exposed to in your environment. There's a lot of things. EMDR is a great one. Dynamic neural retraining system by Annie Hopper. That's another way to brain retrain. There's a lot of things you can do, but the easiest way, I think, is psychedelic therapy.
So cool. I just want to touch for a second on that chicken story. Obviously, I was joking about eat chicken while you're high on mushrooms, but when we talk about trauma in our world today, people think that has to be some major event, when it isn't at all an event. It is what you created inside of your body about you during that event. It's not about the event.
Exactly.
So I work with women a lot in terms of fat loss, and a lot of the women that I work with struggle with food in many different ways. But I know lots of women struggle with food, but carbs are bad, or
yes,
I can't help myself, but I have to eat that whole cake. Like it is a how do I say it? It is an uncontrollable reaction. So carbs are bad. And so they just can't do it. They are so fearful of that potato. Okay. Or they are so stressed out and they are in the mind of like emotional eating that they have to go home and eat every sweet that's in the house. Just as two examples. And something in their body has created this story about this food, not specifically potatoes maybe, but carbs in general or sweets in general, where you are no longer acting consciously. And if you are somebody who struggles with mindfulness and you're thinking you just have to be more disciplined, like you might literally be having a trauma response when you have the option of eating cake or steak. And you're just like, it hits you and you are no longer in a conscious mindset.
Yeah.
And so this can be as sort of uneventful as that. It doesn't have to be a major traumatic event for your body to have a stress response.
Not at all. It's all about what you are saying to yourself every time you are around that thing. So if you are, every time you see dairy, for me, I was always like, I can't have dairy. Dairy's bad. So now my body registers when it sees dairy. I don't even need to have the thought. My body already has a stress response. It already sees dairy as the enemy. And that is a limbic system response that I'm having. So it is going to start inflammatory chemical processes. So I'm starting to create inflammation just because my brain many times said, that's bad. That's bad. No, I can't have that. No, that's bad for me. Danger, danger, danger. So now, unknowingly, fortunately, our brain has, just by our thoughts, have created this subconscious, what we could say subconscious inflammatory, like this danger response in the body, which then becomes physical, which then becomes the inflammation, and then we're constantly mounting and, inflammation is immune response. We're constantly immune response. And that's what, chronic fatigue syndrome and a lot of these autoimmune conditions is this unchecked inflammatory response. So a lot of it is coming from our thoughts, unfortunately.
So let's talk about neuroplasticity and this idea that psychedelics can create new stories.
That's right.
Tell us about it.
That's what's so exciting. And so you're not having to do as much work. So I love like the Gupta method and DNRS, which is Annie Hopper's method. I think those are really great for people who don't want to do psychedelics. You have those options to do that, but it is like 2 hours a day, and you're going to have to, do your meditations, and you're going to have to retrain the brain, and there's exercises and things. Or you can just set up a time, intentionally get ready and do your psychedelic therapy, which really what they've found from psychedelics and when they've done studies is that it creates a sense of openness where you are so much more open to new ideas, the world around you. It literally creates the opportunity for new neural pathways, new neural connections, so that you start seeing the world in a different way. And you start seeing things that you used to see as a threat as, oh, this is only dairy. Like, no big deal. Like maybe yes, there's no threat here.
Yeah, there's nothing going on here. It's just a glass of milk.
Exactly. So that's what's so great about there's a lot of research to show that things like extrovertedness, so many people that have chronic illness have depression, have anxiety, have mood issues or chronic pain or something that keeps them from being extroverted. And we know that happiness is so much connected to your community. Mm-hmm. So if you are in chronic illness and you're not able to foster more senses of community, you're going to feel lonely. You're going to just continue that cycle of depression. So psychedelics really get you to feel more like yourself, more like, wow. So many people say that I've heard people say is like, wow, I feel so much more hopeful. I want to talk to people. They're so much more extroverted. They feel like they have a new lease on life. Things that ideas that they held very close to them, their heart, maybe they don't have those ideas anymore. Maybe they don't see the world as this dark and gloomy place. They see it as full of possibility. This is just some of the things that people can experience with psychedelic therapy.
That is incredible and hopeful for sure. How would a session, I'm assuming you facilitate what did you call it?
Trip sitting.
Are you a trip sitter?
I am becoming certified right now in trip sitting.
So
And
what
that,
might that look
Mhm.
like? So if I came to you and I was really struggling with not only chronic illness, but like this is obviously like the neuroplasticity aspect of psychedelics is definitely a bit of a trauma response. And we're trying to help that part of us so that we can overcome the chronic symptoms. Tell me what that might look like. I come to you and I say, like, Brianne, I'm struggling
Yeah,
with XYZ emotional, danger, danger, danger. I am also struggling with major gut issues. I've got SIBO. I can't seem to lose weight, but I know that there is this trauma aspect of my world. How can you help me?
right. So I always make sure that they are first, having seeing somebody. Maybe they have a psychologist or a psychiatrist if there is anything present, like if they've got any kind of disorder, so that they're being taken care of. They can't be on any medications. That's why I got off of medications. And I mean medications like SSRIs. You cannot be on like a SSRI. So we do kind of the preliminary work, and there's always a discovery call. And the discovery call is going to talk about all of the things that they're experiencing that are really holding them back from living the life that they know they can. So we really delve into that. We really delve into setting like what do you want? Like if you had a magic wand, what would you want to be different in your life? How, and you really don't need to know the how of this. You just need to imagine what life could be like if these things were not holding you back. So there's usually 1 to 3 calls, depending on the person and what their experience, what they want. 1 to 3 calls where we're setting up and creating rapport, and really just I am here to reflect back to you what you're experiencing. I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I'm not here to do anything else, but just be a neutral mirror and supporting you I'm and helping you through this process. It's like a guide, someone to hold your hand in a way. And because I have been chronically ill and had depression and experienced most of the things, or I can sympathize, right? I can definitely sympathize and be in my heart for people experiencing these. So then we would make a date for when we want to do the experience. We have the psilocybin, and typically there would be a rental of an Airbnb. So that is really great because then you have no attachment. It's not done in your home. You don't have to worry about someone coming home, like your kids,
Yeah.
family, whatever. Have your setting, and then have the experience. You do want to have an experience, what they call a hero dose. So if on that day you're like, you know what, I don't want to have, I'm afraid, I don't want to do too much. Well, of course you can choose, but there's usually a set of how much you're going to take. Like my mother, who did this when she was, I think, like 65, did it, and she had incredible results. I would say my mom and is much more connected to her heart and so much more like easy to talk to, and it's amazing the transformation just one time did for my mother, who's also had chronic illness. So your age should not matter. Like I know my colleague Sarah Howitt, who created the Trip Sitter course and certification, she has worked with people who have cancer, and they're like maybe feeling like they need to have acceptance around the possibility of dying. She's worked with people as young as like 17 years old whose parents have really encouraged doing this to support their child in their struggles. So it could be any age range. So once you do the trip, it usually lasts about 4 hours, a little bit give or take. It's usually a start in the morning, goes until the evening. After the trip, typically the client will just talk about their experience if they want to. They are encouraged to journal. They're encouraged to really have time to reflect on their experience and possibly what they want to do now. It's so important that once they have that experience, what do they want to do? And then after, which is called the integration call, we're as the trip sitters helping that person fulfill what they said they wanted to do. So it's an accountability partner also. Hey, you said you wanted to call your mother. You haven't talked to your mother in 10 years. Did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's so important to have that accountability partner during that time.
That's incredible. So if somebody doesn't necessarily want to do a 4-hour session, I did mention asking you about microdosing. Can somebody do this, let's say for a 12-week period, microdose, which if for those of you listening, if you don't know what a microdose is, it is you take a tiny amount that won't actually have an effect on you, like hallucinogenically, I guess we could say. But
yeah, it's not gonna be perceptible. You're not gonna be like, ooh, I feel like
you're not on a trip.
Yeah, you're not on a trip.
Mm-hmm. So, but I've read that while for that 12-week period that you do a certain amount every single day, you are encouraged to journal. Where are your goals? Because you are essentially having the psilocybin in your system for a long period of time, you are still very open. Your neural pathways are firing. It wants you to, excuse me, it wants you to create new stories, new things, new connections, whatever it looks like for you. So how would you recommend somebody microdosing?
Yeah. So I also recommend working alongside a coach, a trip sitter, someone like if your psychologist is also open to supporting you, because again, it's all about your intention, your mindset during this time. So keeping you in it, not just, okay, it's another pill I'm going to take and I'm just going to go about my day. No, there are books, like journal books that you can do during that time. There are lots of different ways that you can stay connected to this experience.
Mm-hmm.
I like when people are open to it. I love doing it when I'm coaching somebody and I'm working with somebody on their physical health, because it's just going to speed up the whole process of the healing of their physical health if we're doing some microdosing of psilocybin during that time. So I also think that would be a good combination.
Yeah, it's so incredible. I will also just touch on the fact that 100% of the women that I work with and my own experience with physical symptoms. First of all, a lot of women don't think that their physical symptoms are they don't consider it chronic illness, right? But like if you're struggling for 10 years with IBS, that's like chronic, that's chronic illness. Yeah. But there is such an emotional aspect. And I, dove into my healing journey long before I became an FDN, and didn't do the work on the emotional side. And the physical side took so long, and things just kept popping up. And I feel very lucky that I do have a talk therapist who does a ton of visualization. So she doesn't just sit with me and let me talk about my problems. Like she's like, okay, let's connect with the part of you that has that story. And then she like sets me up for the close your eyes and take you back to the first time you ever felt like that. What was around you, the whole thing. And really diving into that has helped my physical symptoms more than anything.
Absolutely.
So
I think it's critical. This is a very critical piece, is that, again, from what we said in the very beginning of our conversation, we cannot say, put one in this corner and put one in this corner, physical and mental, emotional. It all has to be in a rich, just in our perspective at all times. And so there's so many things now, like you're working with a therapist who, thank God, is using techniques and tools that are going to help you reprocess memories and beliefs. That is critical. That's why I love EFT too. I think EFT and tapping is is so crucial.
Yes.
And EMDR changed my life. Not only, now I did EMDR and it was super helpful. Like, I'll just say it was one of the best things I ever did, but it was not as significant as the psychedelic. I did it and I still had my depression because and it was maybe rewriting that neural pathway connected to that one belief system and that one trauma, but it wasn't helping me like rewrite the entire piece. And that's why the psychedelic experiences, I think, were so crucial, is that it really wiped the slate clean and that I could start again and start with this and working with somebody after you do psychedelics to make sure your belief systems don't go back, because these are really ingrained. Imagine like a river that's been flowing since the dawn of time in this certain way. It's like, it is ingrained. It's the same thing with our beliefs and our, beliefs about the world. We have to completely be really on top of it when we're creating new belief systems. So working with somebody to be like, hey, what have you been thinking? How have you been, have you been doing your affirmations? Have you been doing your XYZ? Because you don't want this to all be, oh, I felt really good for 6 months and then started going back to my thoughts, like spend the money.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've spent so much. I'm just like, it is so worth it. Make the investment, borrow the money, take the money out of your 401k or whatever it is, do it. It is your entire life. It is your happiness. It's your dreams. It's how you feel about yourself. Make the investment.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to have the quality of life that you want if you're not investing in yourself. And that's kind of be just like a blanket statement. Like, you're just not going to live the life that you want if you're not investing in yourself. And if this piece of it is important to you, then don't let money be the reason that it stops you.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, Brianne, honestly, we could go on forever. Is there and we might do a part 2, I think. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we go into your program?
No, I think we've done well. It's as much as we've had to cover. I think we've done good.
Okay. Tell us where people can find you.
So you can find me on my website. It's Brianne with an I, Brianne Gates.com. That's GATES. And I just created a program. I have 2. Like, my program is really focused on being a health warrior. A radiant health warrior is really what I'm calling it, is because we all want to feel good, look good, be beautiful, but we also have to focus on the ways to do that. And so the ways that I want to support people in doing that is giving them an opportunity to find that warrior within. Like, yes, I've struggled with IBS for 10 years, or I've struggled with depression all my life. You have to adopt this warrior mentality in order to make these changes, to become this new version of yourself. That's what I did. That's what I had to do. And so I want to instill that in other people. So that's my my program. And then I have a program that I'm doing, because I didn't say this, but one of the things that I experienced right before I was diagnosed with Lyme is that I lost about half of head of my hair. And if you see, like, I have a ton of
You
hair.
have beautiful hair.
Thank you. And I lost half of it. And it was one of the most scary and devastating times in my life. And as a woman, we really rely on our hair. And I'm going to be doing a course about hair loss and supporting people on recovering their hair and how the ways to do that. So that's going to be my group program coming in January 2025.
Amazing. Launching in January. Okay. So BrianneGates.com is Brianne's website. She's got 2 programs, one about vibrant health and finding that health warrior. That you exude that, just FYI, perfect name for your program.
Yay. Thank you.
You do. And then a group program all about recovering this beautiful head of hair. She really does. If you're only listening and not watching this, she really does have a beautiful head of hair, and I'm very jealous. So check her out. I will put her current Instagram in the show notes, but she did let me know that you are going to have a new Instagram coming soon. So hope either by the time this airs, we'll put the new one in, or for anybody watching or listening to this in the future, we'll make sure that you have the up-to-date information so you can get a
Yeah.
hold of Brianne as well.
It should be Radiant Health Warrior on Instagram and on TikTok.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure, I'll just put notes into the show notes and people will find you.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun and such a pleasure to share this information.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on today.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle.
If you're looking for more information on how you can work with me, you can head to my website at www.michellescarlett.com or find me over on Instagram at michellescarlett_. And this information will also be provided in the show notes.